Welcome back, artist. It's day 17 of the Inktober Tangle Challenge, and today we're learning how to draw the SWiSit tangle. As always, I'll be sharing two ways to draw this tangle. One will be simple, and the second one will be a bit more complex. Well, I think a lot more complex would be a better description. So it's a lot of fun, but there are a lot of layers to this, so just be prepared. To begin this tangle, we're going to start in the center and draw a curved line which curves into a spiral. At the end of the spiral, add a little orb. I'm going to draw the same thing again. It can be smaller, it could be larger, it could be the same size, but I want you to make sure that you have connected the two. So there's no space between. Those curves where the spiral is are always touching the spirals next to where they are. And additionally, always make sure that you're drawing your spirals in the same direction. So I'm drawing mine in a counterclockwise motion, but if you do yours clockwise, continue to do all of your spirals in that clockwise motion. So I've just drawn this spiral, but you'll notice that I left some space between. So now I'm going to go back and make sure that I'm filling in one so that everything is touching. I'm actually filling it with several more little spirals. So again, starting at the center point, drawing around and touching the spiral next to it, or having that space and then filling in between the different spirals. And you can add as many as you would like. So continue on around with these spirals until you have reached back to where you originally started. And you can fill in between or above with a variety of sizes. I think variety is key to this tangle. So don't just do all the same size and width, height, width. Change it up and fill in. Now that the spirals are done, I'm going to add a few tangle enhancers. So I added an aura around this large spiral by just drawing a curved line above it. And then I'm filling in that space with these orbs, and then the negative space is being colored in with black ink. And I'm going to do that to the three large spirals on the tangle. The next tangle enhancer I'm adding here is called a perf. And it's just going to be some orbs that I'm drawing along the edge of these smaller spirals. And kind of at the top of the spiral, whatever's sticking out the highest point, I add the largest orb and then I gradually get smaller. But, that's just personal preference. If you wanted to do your perfs all the same size, you could do that. So again, I'm filling in all of the smaller spirals. I'm adding a perf around it. So it's this lovely border that we're creating here of the aura with the orbs and then these little perfs around everything else. So for the shading, I'm adding a little graphite along the kind of the bottom parts of these spirals, the bases, if you will, the stems, as they grow up and then spiral around. So just the center area, and then for those smaller ones, I'm getting those as well, but again, just kind of like the bottom of those stems. And now, of course, blending that in with the tortillon to soften up any kind of hard edge that I drew with that graphite pencil. All right, my friends, that is the simple version of the SWiSit Tangle. We are on day 17, so if you want to fill out the back of your tile, and from what I've learned, the SWiSit name stands for sit with it and see it through. And you will definitely need that mantra for the second version that I'm about to share with you all. So I'm doing the complex version on a Renaissance Zendala, and I'm starting by adding a pretty wide border. And I'm just taking my time and slowly drawing this border with my graphite pencil. I'm now going to add a second border, but I'm drawing inside of the one that I just did, and you'll notice that the space between the two lines is pretty narrow. Inside the smaller circle, I'm marking 5 dots, and I'm trying to get them as evenly spaced as I can. This is just so I have a reference point of where to draw my spirals. I want to try to keep them as evenly spaced as possible, and this is just a little trick that I use to do that. So I'm switching to an 01 Pigma Micron pen in black, and I'm drawing large spirals towards each of those reference points. So it's not necessarily that the spirals have to touch those 5 little marks. It's more so that they are spaced evenly out. So some might reach the point like this one. The first one obviously was much shorter. It's always good to have variety. But you could, if you wanted to draw all of them to your points, you could do that as well. But for me, it was more about spacing them out somewhat evenly around the tile. And so now it's time to fill in all the space between these 5 large spirals. And I suggest filling them in with a variety of sized spirals. So medium, small, teeny tiny, but just fill it in and have them just grow on top of each other. And I am staying inside that pencil border that I created at the very beginning. But other than that, just draw and draw and draw. Think of it as like a weed, spreading and spreading and spreading. And, doing my best to make sure that these spirals are touching another spiral. I'm going to go ahead and move along, but please feel free to pause the video and take your time enjoying all these spirals. So there is my completed step 1. I'm now going to switch to a brown pen for the Tangle enhancers. So I'm going to be drawing an aura here around one of those larger 5 spirals that I started with, and then filling in the space between the aura and the spiral with a set of orbs. For time's sake, I'm going to speed up this section of the video, but please feel free to take your time in completing these auras and these orbs. In the end, I will have added an aura around 5 of these spirals, and I've tried to space them out as evenly as possible, but they certainly aren't exact. And I'm now coming in and coloring in the space between those orbs using that brown ink. So I had a plan when I started this tangle, and then it did not go as planned. And that's okay. That happens. And it's just a drawing, it's just a tile. And I guess if I didn't like it, I wouldn't have kept going and going and going and presented it to you all. But um, what I'm trying to say is that things change, and you can look at your art and think, okay, something's missing, and then decide to go back and add more. So what I'm doing here is just adding a lot more of the auras and orbs in this brown color because I felt like it really needed that. So on the simple version, it only needed a few, but for this version with all of these spirals, I ended up going back and adding many, many, many more. And you might decide that you only want a few. This is your art. Even though I'm leading you in a direction that worked for me, you might choose a different path. I'm now going back and tracing over the pencil line border that was drawn at the very beginning. And I'm obviously some of these spirals and auras are covering up a lot of it, but what is still showing, I'm going over with the brown pen to bring it out. How about some more auras? I'm now going to aura inside each of those spiral lines. Because the spiral lines are touching other spirals, they're closed off. And so now we have these shapes. And so I am just auraing inside each of these kind of organic spaces. Take your time, press pause on the video. I probably have a lot of spirals to aura, and just enjoy this time, and I will meet you at the next step. I'm now going to be using this Jelly Roll pen. It's Souffle is the type of pen it is, and it's number 929. That's the color. I love the Souffle pens. They're probably my favorite of the Jelly Rolls, except for the gold Jelly Roll because I like sparkle. But I like the matte effect of these Souffle pens, so it'll look a little bit different when it dries here. And I'm coming in and I'm filling in all of the orbs with this blue color. And blue and brown is such a classic combination. It's just more like a turquoise color, but um, just looks lovely. And again, the souffle pens dry a little bit lighter. They're a little bit dark when they go on, but it has just a beautiful look when it's complete. And just be careful, these Jelly Roll pens take longer to dry than the microns, so just keep that in mind. And I'm now going to color in that narrow border. And I'm kind of intentionally leaving a little bit of the Renaissance tile kind of at the edge. So I'm not putting that blue ink up to the brown pen exactly. There's a little bit of paper showing through. And you can see in this image right here, this part of the video, you can see where some of the souffle pen has started to dry here on the left side of the screen. And you can see how it changes color when it dries. So anyway, filling in this border with this blue. I'm going to add some shading inside of the spiral auras. I'm using General's charcoal pencil, and the color is Sanguine, spelled Sanguine. And I'm just going around the edge of those kind of organic freeform shapes that were drawn inside of those spirals. And I gotta say that this is where I got kind of excited about this variation of the Tangle. I think I had originally planned on using white charcoal because that's such a classic combination, the brown, black pens, and then using the white charcoal to add highlights. But I'm really glad I kind of changed my mind and I'm adding this brown here. Again, it really does make that blue Jelly Roll pen pop even more. And now I'm coming in with the tortillon and just kind of smudging this in. I'm not really worried about how neat it is going to look. I'm actually going to add more chalk to this in a moment. So keeping it dark kind of on the edge of the shape, and the center part of the shape is staying lighter. Obviously in some of these teeny tiny shapes, it's just going to be one value, but in the larger spaces like this one right here, outside edge is going to be darker and the inside part of the space will be a little bit lighter. I'm now coming in with my white charcoal pencil and I'm adding just a little bit of a highlight on some of these smaller spirals that didn't get any of the sanguine charcoal, that red-brown color at the tops. So I'm just kind of bringing those even more forward with that white charcoal. So when I first planned out this tangle on my first draft, I thought that this border would stay as it is and this would be it. But as you can see, I'm adding more. um, I've got my graphite pencil and I'm creating yet another border, and I'm going to be filling in this space between the SWiSit Tangle and the outside edge of this Zendala tile. I've switched back to the brown pen and I'm going to kind of zigzag my way around this border. So just back and forth from the inside border to the outside border. And zigzags are, usually done with straight lines, but I'm adding a little bit of curve to mine. It's kind of giving sun ray vibes here. In each of these spaces, which are triangular shapes, I'm going to fill in a series of parallel curved lines. So I'm just mimicking the line on the left, turning my tile a little bit, mimicking, and just filling up this entire space. And if you are familiar with the Shattuck Tangle, you will see how this resembles it. And I believe that it is it's one of the Inktober Tangles, maybe next week. I can't remember, but yeah, so very much like the Shattuck Tangle here. So just nice little curves going all the way around. So I've switched over to the Sanguine charcoal pencil. That's that red-brown color that I used in the center area. And I'm just going over some of the lines in this border that I just drew. So I'm only tracing over the lines that were first drawn. I described it as a zigzag line and it kind of look like rays of a sun. So just tracing over those lines, not every line. And now taking the tortillon and really blending that charcoal in and really softening up that edge. This was definitely a, I made the right choice moment when I was doing this. Again, did not follow my original plan. Several times I did not follow it. So this was a lot of fun to kind of get surprised along the way. Lots of happy surprises. I'm adding a little bit more of this red-brown charcoal here to that outside edge, just covering up that graphite pencil line, and then blending it in and softening it up with the tortillon. When I tell you all that I just could not stop with this tangle, I just kept going and going and going. So I'm coming in now with the sanguine charcoal pencil and adding a very heavy-handed border to the SWiSit tangle in the middle of the tile. So being more heavy-handed than I usually am. So I'm coming in here now with some white charcoal, and this will kind of help connect this outer edge, this outer border with the inner tangle in the middle. So I'm using both colors of chalk in both places. This is kind of to create some continuity with the entire tile. So I'm just kind of shading in a triangular shape in that kind of empty space in the middle. And then I'll start blending that out with a tortillon. I'm also going to add some white to the center section. The only place the white charcoal was just a few of the ends of those smaller spirals. So I'm coming in here and adding a little bit more white to the middle section um, inside of those larger spiral areas. And there we have it, a completed SWiSit tangle, or a variation on it, I should say, and a lot more layers. Lots more tangling, lots more shading. What an absolute blast this one has been. So yeah, day 17, SWiSit Tangle, which stands for sit with it, see it through. And I am so glad that I sat with this one and I kept pushing and pushing and pushing and adding on. I am just over the moon with how it turned out. I just think it is an extraordinary tile. So again, that's the simple version. This is the complex version. And my name is Martha, and I want to thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for day 18. Have a good one.